is Indie Game Clinic. I'm Joe Baxter Webb. Thanks for joining. If this is your first time on the channel, hi. I run a weekly stream where we look at some indie games which are works in progress, so they might be in a very early prototype stage. They might be, you know, on Steam as a demo. But generally speaking, on this Thursday stream, I don't look at games which have been commercially released yet. So no use sending me your Steam keys or anything like that because I don't play them. My background is I got my first job in games back in 2015, I think it was. Yeah, 2015. Worked in a mobile studio for 3 years. That's after like years and years of making games as a hobbyist. Then went on to teach in a university for a couple of years, and then went back into the industry, again mostly games as service type games. Like I worked with a studio that made Roblox games. I worked at one of the big free-to-play companies, and this channel is just my way of taking what I've learned about design, production, creative direction in all of those places and trying to apply it to people's indie games as they're working on them. So I'm here to give feedback on people's games, play them, have a little bit of fun, and we also have a really great community around this channel of just other people who are willing to give feedback and show up in the chat and kind of feedback on the games that they can see. And I think that's great because, you know, game design isn't about getting feedback from like one expert. It's about being able to sort of put your game out there, see how different people respond to it, and then filtering the feedback so you can work out which is actually in line with what you're trying to do with your game. So thanks to everyone who shows up regularly and already does that and gives feedback. I think it's good practice. I think, you know, that's fundamentally why I run this channel the way I do and why so much of it is based on giving live feedback to games, because games are such a broad medium. It's such a big tent that there are lots of things that could be classified as a game that have different kind of design methods, you know, different genre standards, all of that sort of thing. And the best way to really learn game design, once you're past the point where you need to learn how to physically make a game with a game engine, once you're past that point and you're trying to learn game design, one of the best ways is just to apply game design thinking to other games. And you can do that to games you play, but doing it to other people's works in progress can be really helpful. And it's what you would do in a class. You know, if you were in some sort of creative arts class, or even if you were doing poetry or architecture, you would sit around with each other's work and you would give it critical feedback. And that's not just to help the person who you're feeding back to, it's also to help yourself develop your own sense of what you think is good and your own set of intuitions about design so that you can make better design decisions as you go along. So with all that, I don't know if you can tell this, but I've realized I don't introduce the channel or myself enough. So those of you who are regulars, sorry, you're going to have to sit through that a little bit more often, because once a week when we do a stream, I will explain the channel, because I get so many comments from people, particularly on my videos, not on the streams, who just fundamentally don't understand this channel, what it's about. And that's understandable. You see like this big group of people that you've mentally labeled as like game dev YouTubers, and you sort of assume that they're all coming from the same place professionally, they all have the same goals, and we don't all have the same goals. I'm not here to market my own games. I'm not here to sell you a course. The only thing I'm selling really is the repeated existence of this channel, which is why I operate through Patreon. So thank you to everyone who supports that. Yesterday we had the Patreon supporters stream that is just games from people who support the channel. The stream we're doing today, the stream that we do every Thursday, is, you know, games anyone has sent in. I do occasionally take games off the backlog if they're in a very early prototype stage, or if they contain loads of AI art, because I don't really want to support that on this channel. So that's a whole nother discussion that I'm not going to have right now. But pretty much everything that's in that queue, I do try and get around to eventually. But I try and theme the streams so that the games that we're looking at together have something in common. And today, the theme is 3 games about contraptions. And by contraptions, I just mean a game where you operate some sort of gizmo or device. We've got a game called Nanima. We've got a game called, what's it called? Danilo's Meditation, which is a little itch browser game, which I'll sandwich in between these 2 Steam demos. And then the last game we're going to look at is called Falling Stars and Other Celestial Objects, which looks a bit like, if you remember those old Windows physics games, like, was it Marvelous Machine? I can't remember what it was called. This kind of thing. Incredible Machine. Yeah, it's called The Incredible Machine. The game I'm remembering from back in the olden days when the internet was black and white. Is The Incredible Machine. That's the one I am remembering. So I think we're going to get... The third game in the list looked like this, like it was going to tickle a similar itch to that. Let's just see who's in the chat before we start, and we're going to start off with Nanima. Hi, Mr. Red. Hi, Kitten. Hi, Stanley. Hi, Azul. Hi, Tim. Yeah, Tim, we're aging ourselves by remembering that specific Windows game, but hey. I'm going to turn the music up a bit. We've got some nice sort of... this is reminding me a lot of Purity Ring. I'm probably aging myself by knowing what Purity Ring is as well, but kind of Purity Ring, dreamy trap music going on here. Okay, we're going to do a new game. I don't know what this research button does. It's strange that it's highlighted on my first run. I guess maybe there's some sort of meta game here where I can unlock stuff and the research is that, or maybe it's just like a log of things we've encountered in the game. But I'm going to do new game first because that's the button you should usually click on. Welcome to the workshop. This is where you build and modify your nanoship. Let's go full screen. This is, yeah, space to continue. Okay, here's your most basic part, the core. I already find the whole kind of aesthetic of this quite pleasing. And we're just going to press space to step through the tutorial. If this gets destroyed, it's game over and you have to restart. But that's not the worst. But that's not the worst that can happen. Let's try selecting it. Click a part to select it and click an empty space to deselect. You can drag it around the screen. Okay. So this is the part of our contraption or our ship that we need to protect. So we're going to be building stuff around this to defend it. You can buy and sell parts at the shop in the top right by dragging items in and out. Okay. Don't mind if I do. So the grid is quite small that we've got. So they're connected to each other. If you drag it gently, they stay connected. But if you drag it further, they come apart. It's very tactile. And that, I think, is good. It's got like a toy factor so far. You know, like, we're probably going to get into some sort of deep strategic economic building and thinking about how this machine works. But just the fact that it functions so well as a toy, like those little sound effects when you pop it apart, that's great. Find the pop booster in the shop using the arrow buttons. Right, these arrows are a little bit... okay, I guess it's just because it's the thing I'm supposed to be focusing on now, but they don't seem very pronounced. The pop booster... there it is. Let's try attaching it to the core. Right, I'm going to get rid of the thruster because that's not what I'm supposed to be building just yet. So I think these red markers are also our boosters, our thrusters on the ship, which, if that's the case, then that's a nice clear visual language for how that part of the game works. Now these parts will move as a whole. Double click the booster or press enter while it's selected, then press the key you want to assign instead of Z. Okay. Okay, so that's fascinating. We're going to be like constructing our own control schema for the ship as well, which I quite like. This is really, really nerdy. I don't know if you ever played Diablo 3, but one of my memories of Diablo 3 is that I enjoyed mapping the controller buttons nearly as much as the main game. It's like It's definitely something that's worth thinking about as you're working on your own games. Does your game have like a weird guilty pleasure in it that like no one would admit is the appeal of the game, but ends up being like the main game for someone? Because I just loved, yeah, Diablo. Just like trying to get the perfect allocation of buttons to skills was part of the game to me, and I don't know how many Diablo players feel that way, but it ended up becoming a big part of it. I'll set up a basic ship to start you out, but feel free to make any changes. That's a nice compromise between telling us exactly what to do and guiding us. Remember to save. Okay. Save the ship. So it looks like we're basically building defenses around this. Oh, it does have weapons. I was just going to say that we didn't have any sort of weapons, but it does look like we've got some. I want some spikes. So these are mapped onto... You can see what they've done in the setup of the standard ship is they've mapped these on. So the front two boosters are W. So when you try and use WASD, it's going to fire those together and that's going to push us forward. But these ones are D and A. So if this is mapped to D, then that's telling me that having the booster on the left is going to activate and tilt the ship to the right, so that's D in WASD and this is A in WASD, so that's going to tilt the ship to the... So I'm going to just map that to W as well, because that takes us forwards. I wonder if I can... Yeah, I'm going to put the guns on the side. Space isn't a natural firing key to me. So unfortunately you can't map things onto the mouse controller, which is a shame. Let's give them each their own attack button and see how we get on with that. So this to me is already quite intriguing. I like this kind of game. One of my favorite, like, I don't play many sort of free-to-play games as service games, but one of my favorite ones is Crossout. And it's partly because I play it with my son. I don't know if you've played Crossout. You sort of build apocalyptic cars and do all sorts of different stuff with them. Mostly blow each other up. But it's got this kind of block-like quality of you're building the cars out of pieces that fit together like Lego, and then they smash off as you're fighting, and it's just really satisfying. Right, look at this. There's some lovely... weird... Oh yeah, we're a nanobot, aren't we? So we are inside something. Maybe these are cells. So the theme of the game of being a nanobot inside something is working quite well here, because it sort of doesn't matter that these are very sort of abstract things that we can see. So I might just breaking down whatever I want to get resources. Is that what we're doing here? Yeah, I love that we've got some Diablo control mapping nerds in the chat. I'm not insane. It's something that other people enjoy too. And I love the fact, so the thing that is already immediately appealing to me about this game, and I can feel it a little bit, but I can also just see it suggested by the kind of affordances of the game, is that this is a game where you get to build the game feel of your vehicle. Right? So at the moment, if I try and turn, it's got this interesting little turning circle where, because the thrusters push you forward as well, so I can't like turn without moving forwards, and that's a very subtle thing. And I've got 3 thrusters that push me forwards that all activate when I press W, and just those little turning ones when I go side to side. But you can imagine we could put 2 thrusters for each turning point, so that you can turn around more quickly, Or we could even have a thruster that pushes you backwards as you turn, which would mean that you could do different kind of turning circles and stuff. That's really, really appealing to me. Just the idea that as a player engaging with this game, I will, gradually get to build a vehicle or, a character in a different game that feels very, very different. I don't know if I'm supposed to be able to blow these up. It seems very, very difficult to blow up one of them. And in terms of like onboarding the player, I think that might be a mistake, because our whole engagement with the I had a delightful time in the build your ship screen, but now we're straight into a situation where I'm doing damage to things that I can't see resulting in anything. It's, we're not always seeing the damage number. Maybe it's because green is softer than blue and we need to blow up something green first, but I would always, whatever your game is about, whether your game is about like destruction or survival, what the core thing someone is doing, like make sure that the player gets like a satisfying experience of doing that thing as soon as they get in your game, even if it's sort of a little bit fake. Just have one thing at the beginning that's really easy to destroy so that people can be onboarded into it. And then if there's something that's a little bit harder after that, then fine, whatever. But I don't really know what I'm supposed to be doing here, and it's because the game is being quite unresponsive by not giving me a result for what I'm doing, So I've shot at both of those things for a considerable amount of time and it hasn't done anything. Maybe I'm not supposed to shoot any of these things in the environment. Maybe I'm supposed to go and look for something else, but... Okay, going in there seems to mine some sort of XP. So I think we're doing a kind of what could end up being a bullet heaven, right? When we've built up to it by modifying the ship enough. But there's not really much for me to use my weaponry on. Is this maybe because we did launch, it's just like a... So you probably want to make some changes to your ship. If you want to detach a part, simply click and drag until it pops off. Yep, we've done that. If you want to sell it, drag it back to the shop. This is a very kind of clean, clear interface, generally. Items only lose value if they get damaged. Okay. Let's try and make our ship turn faster. So if this is D, we're going to make this D as well. Oh, I can't. I don't have enough money. Can I store something? Yeah, I can store stuff for later in there. That's good. Okay, let's try again. Let's see if I can actually... Okay, that's what we're missing. Proceed via the siphon above. Is that the siphon above? That's going to take us into an actual combat scenario. Apparently not. Ah, I see. You're supposed to pop it open and then fly into it. It's kind of... The shape of the thing indicates you're supposed to fly into it, but I'm not sure why we need to shoot it open in order to do that. It's a few too many steps for something that the player needs to just work out on their own. I'm generally quite happy to be expected to work stuff out on my own, but if you put too many steps in it and it's quite abstract, it's gonna challenge people a bit too much. You don't want to challenge people with the stuff that doesn't matter, You can pick up parts by clicking them. So this starts to make it feel a bit weird that we've got mouse control, but we can't map mouse onto anything. Because we're now using the mouse for something. Whereas before it was like, we were only using it in the menus. Seem to be able to harvest stuff from these guys, that's cool. So there's going to be stuff we encounter that is just not, is too strong for our weapons, generally speaking. I think we're nearly dead anyway. Now, am I supposed to just play until I die, or am I supposed to deliberately try and escape the area? I really love the way it's kind of getting this watery, in a sort of biological vibe. Yeah, someone in the chat said who was that? Deckard said it's like fireworks going on in the distance. Yeah, that's true. I know this has come up recently, but like if you're making a game that's supposed to be chilled out, there's this challenging sort of sound design thing where you sort of still need the sounds to have impact and everything, but you want them to feel soft in some way, which, if you're making a game that is about destroying things, is an interesting challenge. But this is pretty much the audio direction I would encourage people to do if they were making a game about like mining or any kind of gentle, chilled out, satisfying thing that involves destruction. Think of how you can make the sound have this kind of fireworky, popcorny type feel. Is that a portal? Is that crack a portal? Why are you telling me about portals? You opened a chip cache. Chips can't be added to your inventory. You have to attach them to your ship in edit mode to gain their properties. Right, this feels very uncomfortable. Having the mouse follow the camera so that you can click something in the HUD. Not a fan of that. What I would probably do is try and make the mouse look that you've got have a dead space that kind of goes around a square around it, but when you go outside of it, it sort of acknowledges that you're going to the HUD and stops moving the camera, because it starts to... It's like you're trying to concentrate on the relationship between the HUD element you're clicking and the mouse, but everything is still moving, and then that feels like it's like kind of taking priority. It doesn't feel great. Okay, look at all this stuff. We've got a tissue sample array. Data found. We're doing some sort of minesweeper here with our research of our tissue samples. Can we spend stuff over here? I don't know. Now, I'm guessing this is the stuff that we collect within a run, and that's why I had to sort of assign that thing straight away, because it said it doesn't go into your inventory, but I'm not sure. Plastipearl. I'm clicking on that because I've been taught to click on things to pick them up. But it's not indicating why I can't click on it to pick it up. There's no indication of why clicking on it is not doing anything. So I will shoot it instead. I don't have a way of reversing on this ship yet either. Don't know what that is. Module. Don't mind if I do. Right. The thing that the game hasn't really communicated to me yet is whether I need to be worried about dying. You know, is this a game where you're just naturally expected to die and then you've got your new stuff and you build with it? Or do I need to actually return unscathed or only moderately scathed in order to use my new stuff? It's really hard to design tutorials. It's really hard to know what your player really needs to know. And like yesterday, we were doing a stream where there was some tutorial stuff where it was like, it was front-loading too much information. That's a really common tutorial problem, is like, instead of just telling me what I need to know right in this moment, you're telling me stuff I might need to know in 10 minutes, you know? And you can do a bit of that, like, that's kind of what I'm requesting here, is like, I want to know what happens when I die, and whether I should avoid dying, whether I should be trying to avoid dying and getting back to a portal, or whether it's okay if I die. Like, can I go and fly back through here? I don't know. But the problem is when you're doing it both at the same time. So the game is saying, now do this. By the way, in 10 minutes you might want to know this information. It's like, don't do two pieces of information at once that relate to two different things, you know? So yeah, it looks like we can't go back through that, whatever it is. Okay, we press tab to edit the ship. Ah, I see. Connecting parts outside the workshop consumes energy, so add and remove parts with caution. It's so wobbly. It'd be nice if it straightened us up for this. Right, how do I... I've got my inventory here. I see. Modifies, increases the rate of fire of a neighbouring part. I think we're going to get murdered. Stuff is sneaking up on us. Yeah, okay. That's not good. Okay. My health is very low, if that works the way I think it does. I'm really not enjoying not being able to reverse, so I'm gonna give myself a way of reversing. This is brutal. Yeah, not pausing when you're in that menu feels quite brutal. I mean, I kind of like it. I like the fact that I might have to deliberately go and seek out a safe space to modify the ship. But it's a lot to take in on a first run. It's giving... I know that this isn't exactly the same sort of game, but in terms of the general vibe of this game is giving Noita quite a bit for me. And that's because it's sort of throwing you in the deep end, expecting you to survive. And the thing that I really like about Noita is it's a relatively simple game in terms of the main things you do when you control it. But all of the depth is in a few small components of the game. So in Noita, you've got all of this depth that comes out from wands and modifying wands, and you know, then looking at the context you're in and thinking about how you can use your different wands. This feels very similar in that you've got like a few elements of the game that are just going to be super deep, and then like the game itself is relatively simple in terms of what's going on in this world. That's neat, because it's putting all the complexity in the place where the player can use it. I'm just going to let myself die, because I feel like we've got off to a really bad start, and I can't kill these guys, they're too tough. So yeah, it's just very hard to get away from this dude, which means I can't really modify my ship because I can't find a safe place to modify my ship. So it's making me want to just start again. And I think I was literally just reading about this yesterday, but there's this concept of like failure traps, which is like an experience in a game where you can be losing for a long time, right? And that's what this feels like. Like he's not doing much damage to me, but I can't get away from him. So I'm just sort of in this semi already lost the game kind of state for a very long time. I mean, maybe the intention is that I'm supposed to not care and I'm supposed to just build stuff while I'm getting attacked, but that feels bad as well. I don't know. I think if you wanted a middle ground, then having this in slow motion would be good, because then you can kind of... I put my carbine on an angle and it's spinning the ship around when I shoot it. Yeah, if you had this in slow motion, then you would have like a little bit of the challenge of it being, you know, you're still getting attacked when you're trying to build, which I feel might be crucial to making the game feel dangerous, but yeah, just slow it down. Just give people some bullet time type thing when they're trying to build. I can't even see that I've got the needles. I thought my... Okay. Yeah, I think... Be wary of having too much invisible information about what works on certain enemies. Because, like, how do I know the needle inflicts damage by being a spike? Right. So there's no information here that says this is a good way of dealing with armored enemies, or whatever the logic is behind why that was so much more effective on that guy, right? So that's something to think about, because I'll put that there. See how this works now. Oh, it didn't attach. Excuse me. Oh, because I don't have enough energy. So that's also not very clear when you try and put something on your ship, and it's erroring because I don't have enough energy, but the sound that's being made doesn't feel like that. The sounds when you actually link things together are very satisfying, but I think the little bleep for when the things don't join needs to sound more like an error, because otherwise you very easily get into this state of like this state of like flying away with half your stuff not attached. I'm gonna blow up. I don't have enough to buy one of the, so that's the research tab. This is like your meta upgrades. That's cool. And I like that we can see ahead and we can see how big the tree is, but we can't like go through every single thing. Kind of means that there's a little bit of surprise. Okay. What are NP? Yeah, okay. So what we're going to do this time, make me a little bit more maneuverable. We're going to have a way of reversing. Oh, I've got $10. Okay, I don't have much. By non-orthogonal, I think they mean the fact that you can rotate things less than 90 degrees. I will say, adding that gun at an angle that made the vehicle spin round was really neat, because then we can kind of turn ourselves into a bullet hell boss and like have a couple of guns and just go into a mode where we spin around, right? I think that's pretty neat. What I am going to do, I'm going to map these both to the same control. I don't need to be able to fire them separately. And backspace. Okay. Yeah. I would really like to be able to map attacking onto the mouse button, but I know it's not going to make a big difference to most players. Here we go. Yeah, other folks in the chat see that you can see the benefit of being able to build diagonally. I don't like that when we go into this menu, you sort of stay at the current rotation, because then you've got to work around that, and that's a little bit annoying. But I don't know how you would change that really. Modify the camera to orient around the ship and then snap back when you're out of the menu, maybe. But yeah, the biggest problem I encountered was just that, like, I like the fact it doesn't pause when you're building, because it means you can't just like flippantly change what you're doing in the middle of a fight and you need to go away and find somewhere safe. But I do think giving us bullet time, you know, slow down to 25% speed, 10% speed, something like that when we're in that, when we go into build. Those give you energy, don't they? And I haven't actually used any energy up, so I'm wasting my time doing that. Okay, so those light things are portals. Ah, see, this time I can back away from stuff as I'm shooting it. That's great. Because I've got my thruster on the front. So when I press S, we go backwards. It's not as fast as going forwards. I should have used a pop thruster, really. What is this? Yeah, I really like that. The particles and the thrusters as well. It's not like a fire thruster sound. It's like bubbles, you know, because we are in fluid. I'm gonna go to the next. This is like going down the stairs in like a roguelike dungeon, I guess. Just takes us to a new area. I don't know if there's a concept of depth. I guess there would be. Don't know. So yeah, these give us energy, so we don't need to collect those little bioluminescent orbs unless the turquoise energy bar is a little bit lower. Oh, okay, no, that portal just took us to the other portal. So there's shortcuts to different areas in the level, I think. Unless this just looks very similar to the place I've already been through. Feels a little bit inconsistent in terms of, like, the amount of danger. At the last run, I got loads and loads of danger, and this time I'm kind of roaming around looking for trouble. Hello? Hello, trouble? I would like some trouble, please. Yeah, so maybe the portal is down here. one thing that's been quite good about the pacing of this is, like, you know, we played it for 30 minutes, something like that. I've had enough time to experiment a little bit with the ship and to feel the difference that changing the ship makes. That might still be a little bit too slow for a lot of players, but it is the thing you want to onboard people into in this game, because it is the main appeal of this game, is that as you modify the ship, it changes how it feels. You know, that's really the hook here, the experiential hook of the whole game. So the kind of quicker you can get people into that part, the better. And I think my first experience of just getting attacked while I'm trying to modify the ship on the first level was not great for that. Right, am I supposed to be able to pick these up, or... Oh, nano chips grant special properties when attached. Hardening flux chip, freight chip. We'll just go with durability. Right, so I can't equip another one of these now. I would maybe make that a little bit clearer, like put something over them that indicates that there's no point interacting with them anymore or something. People are going to forget about that rule very easily. Have I picked up anything else? No, I haven't. I had loads of parts last time. I think I just found an enemy that dropped parts in the first run. Now it's just been a little bit more difficult. I think the game generally needs to be a little bit clearer about which things you can click to put in your inventory. And I think if you wanted to really kind of idiot-proof that, you could just, like, when there is something you can click in the environment, take this turquoise color up here, put an orb around it. So I just immediately know whether something is clickable. Because you don't really want the player to look, like, see something like those chips I saw a minute ago and be clicking on them and go, why is nothing happening, right? Because there's like a categorical difference between the things that can go in your inventory and the things that can't. So just clearly indicate that through something interface-based. I think just putting an orb around the things that the player needs to click would be a lot clearer. And then the other things, it's just like, okay, that hasn't got an orb, so the game is at least hinting to me that I need to interact with that in a different way. The orb might not be the exact approach, but you know, that's kind of, the game isn't communicating that difference between types of objects is the problem, you know. Excuse me. I will destroy you with my spikes. So, just to give you I know I'm speaking in a very flat, analytical way about this game currently. Just to give you a little breakdown of where I am emotionally now. What just happened, if you've just popped in the stream and you don't understand the mechanics or whatever, something that was happening there that was really satisfying was, up to this point, I've been wandering around the level. I haven't picked up much stuff. I just picked up all of this stuff to modify my ship with, and we got in that little firefight, and what was happening for me during that firefight was the stakes of the game were raising, right? So it wasn't just like, oh, I need to kill these guys because they're enemies. It was, I need to kill these guys because I now need the area to be safe so I can go into my menu and use this stuff. Before that point, if I'd got in a battle, there were no stakes, because if I died, it was like, well, I haven't lost anything. Now I had something to lose, and I was in a situation where I was going to lose it, and that would deny me of the fun part. Well, the combat's fun on its own, right? But it would deny me of the really fun part of opening up this menu and getting to put my new toys on the ship. So you can think about how the systems, this is like a MDA, mechanics, dynamics, aesthetics thing. The kind of sense of the stakes rising are coming from, like, I've got a resource now that I can invest that is going to increase my enjoyment in this game. It's going to, you know, make my ship more powerful, but not just make my ship more powerful. It's going to actually, like, allow me to experiment with these mechanics and play with them. It's unlocking another form of play within the game to be able to build this thing. And the enemies in the game were threatening to take that away from me. So it was creating this like, this tension that was really kind of great. So just to think about how the systems in the game are working together there to kind of give us a particular experience. That was really, really good. I know this is the thing. I know I'm not like reacting in a really kind of emotional, streamery way, but that was what was going through my head and what was happening for me emotionally during that. We can put another thruster on, I think. So our base movement can be a bit faster. I'm going to map that to W, so it's just a moving forward thruster. And what's the catalyst do? Can be placed near capsules to open them. Oh, was that that capsule near the start? So this is, again, this is where it's becoming a bit Noita-like. It's like I'm kind of like the game is forcing me to learn it on its own terms, and now I'm going to have to like backtrack and try and combine things. Chemosynth regenerates energy at a constant rate. That seems like something useful to have. And then we want to maybe balance... Oh, interesting. Okay, so that increases the size and weight of projectiles. If I put something in front of this thruster, will the thruster still work? That's a question that I have about this. One problem that this has for me, which isn't going to be universal, but I have a very strong desire to make my ship symmetrical, which is a problem that happens a lot in building games generally, for me and probably for other people. So what we'll do is we'll put the chemosynth on one side, we'll create this, put this heavy gun modifier thing on that side. And... maybe we'll have... Is that working? Is that connected? So this is like a heavy blaster thing. That's not connecting properly. Is that because it's got a gun in front of it? So we'll modify this to fire on the left control. And then modify these to work on the right control. You've got some like sorting issues with the UI here where the text is disappearing under the ship. That's like a minor QA thing. The ship is so much faster. Oh my goodness. Okay, so there's the exit to the next level. I'm not going to be able to play much more of this because we've got other games to get through. But this is already feeling like a very solid game with a lot to offer. A lot of the things we've picked out have been, stuff to do with tutorialization and onboarding and very small interface things. But overall, the whole fantasy of this game, in terms of what it's doing with its setting, and like the art and everything, it's really pretty. I really, really like what we're doing in terms of the core kind of building of the thing. So let's try open the catalyst, drop that there. That opens that. Amazing. That's a really satisfying way of creating like a lock and key puzzle that ties into the existing systems in the game. You could have had some other mechanic for how that works, but no, we've got an inventory. We can open the inventory, we can drag something out into the world. Why not just use that in that additional way? Let's see what we've got here. We've got a chemosynth too. Put one there. A structural piece used for connecting parts. Put an accuracy module on this gun over here. Is that going to connect to it? Do I need to rotate it? Yeah. It starts to really take on this kind of... starts to look a lot more like a biological life form once you've got all of these parts on. But your steering is getting affected by the weight of the different objects on the different sides of the machine now, so it gets its own little kind of control quirks, which again is great. The thing about action games where you control a character or a vehicle is like learning the idiosyncrasies of that character or vehicle is the fun of the game, right? If you go down this route of thinking that fun is about learning things, which it often is, you know, I'm not talking about doing a tutorial and learning to play the game. I'm talking about gradual mastery of a thing. Then the more idiosyncrasies your vehicle or character can have in a game, the more there is to learn, and the bigger the ceiling is to that game of like how far you can go with it. And maybe I need to go through that blue portal. And a game where that is constantly shifting, that's really kind of pleasing and enjoyable, because you're constantly having to adapt how you handle the controls of the thing, right? It's like if you were playing a racing game and you chose a random car each time, or you chose a different car each time, there would be a much longer route to mastery of the game than if you were playing with the same car every time. And that's why people that are like very, very competitive about racing games or fighting games stick with the same character and try and master it. But that's not necessarily what people want out of a single player game. They want, often, you know, this is the thing about roguelikes and run-based games. In a run-based game, you want it to feel a bit different each time, so that it's challenging you in a slightly different way. And you don't get that just by procedurally generating the environment, which is, you know, something I've complained about before on this channel, is people just make a dungeon generator and then they go, oh, it's a roguelike. And it's like, well, it might be in certain ways, but it's not getting at the core of why people play these run-based games, which is like how different does it feel to play from time to time? And this game is really, really firing on all cylinders when it comes to creating that, I think. Of creating that type of variety that the player can actually touch and interact with, that isn't just, oh, the walls are in a different place, you know? So did we get a bug on the exit, or did I just not hold the button for long enough? This is really, really unwieldy and hard to drive, this ship. Does the reverse still work? Sort of. The reverse is incredibly slow because we've got a massive ship, and it's... So this is where now being able to modify the ship on the fly becomes really good, right? So if we modify the ship on the fly, we spend energy. But we've come to rest in an area where there's lots of energy, right? So we can take all this stuff off. We can go back to basics. We can say, okay, what do I really care about? I want to keep a chemosynth on here. I want to keep the hardening chip on here. Probably going to use the thruster. We want to keep these two synths. Maybe we can use this structure in some useful way. Again, I don't like the way that... I think we just need a little bit less lenience with the rotation angles once we're building, you know? Like... Maybe it's 15 degrees. It's like 15, 30, 45, you know, like... Is that clock angles? Something like that. It's just a little bit too lenient, I think. But yeah, we can make a... We can put like one of these on. We can put these on either side, and then we can make it kind of go out to the side and create a kind of catamaran type thing. Maybe we put the turning thrusters over here. I'd be really interested to work out over time how the physics works, and, you know, if... That's such good toy factor, this, like, pulling the things apart. To over time sort of work out how the physics works, and, you know, does something have more... What's the word? Torque, like rotational force, if it's further out from the core of the ship. And I'm not saying this to like ask the developer in the chat right now. I'm saying that these are the sort of questions that as a long-term player of this, I would be kind of gradually wrestling with. And yeah, I just think this is great because it asks all of these questions of you, and that as a player, it shows you this big roadmap of like, this is what you're going to be puzzling over for the next however many dozens of hours as you learn this game. And again, the experience of the first few hours of getting into Noita are very similar. It's like a relatively simple control scheme, a relatively simple scenario that you're put into, and a lot of the effort of that game and a lot of the variety and the kind of just dev time is put into providing that player value of like what are the toys that I'm getting to mess around with. This is doing exactly the same thing and doing it very well. I'm going to shut that down now, and we're going to check out. Thanks for playing. Any feedback would be invaluable to me. Would you be willing to let me know what you think so far? Absolutely not. I will never give feedback on a video game. What'd you take me for? I'm just going to dip into the chat and see what folks are saying towards the end of that, because I know I sort of haven't been engaging very much. Golden Apple said they're submitting their game to Valve in a couple of days. Good luck. Hope it goes well. Yeah, a couple of people just saying that the rotational freedom is like maybe a bit too much. I like the fact that you can have angled things and you can like splay them out, but I think maybe locking it to 15 degrees would be good. And then you could lock the ship to the nearest 15 degrees when you go into that menu, and it will just all feel a little bit more snug. It will still have the sense of you can create this kind of wonky biological thing, but you know, just making it a little bit more gridded. Was that the Ship Goes Pew game? That was the Ship Goes Pew game there. Yeah. We've got 2 more games about contraptions. The next one is a puzzle game, Danilo's Meditation, a mouse-only game. Solve maze-like puzzles by extending your control into neighboring cells to reach the goal. This looks really, really kind of interesting. Obviously, it's very kind of clunky art, but it's got a bit of a charm to it. It's got like its own art direction. And this is reminding me, and it's probably based on... What is that board game called? It's like a board game where you sort of operate... here it is. Downfall. This is Downfall, but like a big version of it, right? So Downfall, not to be mistaken with the movie about Hitler. You know, if you ever go to a board game shop and you say, I want Downfall, and they say, we don't have a movie about Hitler, you say, no, I don't mean the movie about Hitler. I mean this brightly colored plastic game for children. So it looks like it's based on that, but it looks like it's going to be a way more complex version of it. Let's see how we get on. And we've got a sort of level select that mirrors the main game by the looks of things, which is nice. Yeah, the game links will already be in the description. If you are looking at this on YouTube, I will add the timestamps to the links on the VOD as well. I always do. I cannot always put the name of the game on the screen. It is just too time consuming, especially seeing as sometimes we do like 6 games in the same stream. Okay, press a control terminal to extend into an interface to control the next cell. Control the goal to complete the level. Okay, so this is just showing us how this works. So we're not moving objects through it, we're connecting them. I'm not sure I understood what happened there, but let's keep going. Okay, control the goal to complete the level. These can't connect to anything because the terminal needs to go into the interface. I think that was the way around. So this can go into here, but none of these can go anywhere because this is facing away from them. So this one And now these ones can go out, but they can't because they can't connect to anything. It's very abstract. It's quite difficult to speak about. So what can we do here? Oh, that one can connect because of the angle. So that one and that one can connect. That can connect there. So we only needed to get connected to the purple thing. Okay, so the way these puzzles are designed is some of this is noise, some of this is not relevant, and we need to sort of like mentally not pay attention to it. Hexes at Nion cell track control limit. If you say so, that I think that's what this is. Retract a terminal, reclaim control. So, oh, okay. It's not like Downfall at all. It's more like a route building thing, like those like plumbing puzzles from BioShock or something similar. So, collect fuel to extend how many cells can be controlled. Okay. So this is telling me how many lines I've got left, right? These. I feel like a little bit of thought about color coding could be helpful here. I understand the game has a sort of 2-color thing going on, but if these are white, right, these little energy crystal things up here, I would make this connection white so that it clearly maps onto like you've spent this thing to make this thing. But and then we pick up 2 more, and that means that we've now got 2 more to spend. Okay. Where does that go? That doesn't go anywhere. I can disconnect that now to reconnect that. Cool. This is neat. This is a really cool kind of puzzle, core puzzle. I really like where this is headed. We're like 3 puzzles in. It's already upped the complexity to the point where it's kind of showing me like, no, you do need to think about this game. But it's not like I've not bounced off of it and gone, I don't understand what's happening here. The music choice is really good. Now, obviously, there's lots of stuff that we could do to make this interface a bit more beautiful, and I'm not sure about this kind of wallpaper. But the music is very good. We talked about this last week, I think. Like, music choice in puzzle games, you don't necessarily want a drum beat. You want something that makes people, that fits into the theme of, you know, you're doing some deep thinking and it's important, you know. So this kind of pensive ambient music is very, very good for a puzzle game. You don't want a driving beat. You want a sort of something to stroke your chin to. So that gets me more energy, and now I can go back round the other way, I think. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we're going to check this one out for 10 more minutes. The thing about games like this is I don't want to reveal too much of it because it's a sort of puzzle, and if you've solved it, you've solved it. So we've got energy to collect around here. That way it's not going to work. That way. That gets us that energy. So we're basically leveling up how many jumps we can do. And now I can jump that way. And now we can turn all that off. It's really satisfying that you can undo all of the jumps by clicking earlier in the chain. Now we want to get this energy. Is it that way? Yeah, and then undo that. And then we're going around this way, I think. Oh no, we can't go that way. You sort of need to backtrack it like you're doing a paper maze. This is really neat. Oh, I didn't. Oh, maybe it's deliberately designed that way. You do this tutorial, you do these puzzles related to it, you do this tutorial, I don't know, we'll see how it goes. If that's so, that's a very well-structured tutorial. It's kind of how campaign-based games would normally work. It's like you learn a skill, you apply it a few times, you learn a new skill, you apply it a few times. They've just sort of made it feel a bit more optional, even though it's not really, because you could play through all of those tutorial levels at the top in one go and not play the levels that branch off them, or you can play one and the levels that branch off it and then move on. Interesting. Boop. Rotate round cells. So these green ones that have the green on them, basically. Uh-oh. You can't rotate them unless they're powered, though. Okay, now it is downfall. Because we're rotating stuff. This is where my brain is going to just completely melt and come out of my ears, I think. You know, not in a bad way. Okay, so we've got puzzle 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, and these all come off of the rotation puzzle. I'm going to play one of these and then see what the next lesson is. So it's only these ones that have a circle round. It's the ones with the gears are the ones we can rotate, right? Oh, I need to get the energy from over there. How am I supposed to do that? Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, not so hard. That doesn't get us anywhere, though. Yeah, this sort of turquoisey blue bit is the bit that accepts the incoming connection. So it's like a lock and key. Let's check out... It says seminar rotation. Okay. Ooh, that's daunting. Just looking at that, but it's good, right? It's daunting in a satisfying way. If you like this, if this is for you, and you get to the point where you see this, you're like, whoo! There's a Jesper Juul's book, The Casual Revolution. There's a bit in it where he talks about concept of pull. And it's a bit like appeal, but it's not really. So yeah, here we go. Sorry, we clicked on the level called seminar, and now we're just going to do an actual game study seminar. So in The Casual Revolution, Jesper Juul talks about pull, and he gives the example of a puzzle piece, and how, like, the vast majority of people, when they look at this image, they know what they need to do, right? This is kind of a affordance theory thing. Like, you look at the thing and you see what you need to do, and if you were physically in the same room as this object, you would almost be pulled to do it, right? You would see it, you'd be like, I really want to put that puzzle piece in that space, right? And it's not a game so much, but it's a activity for fun, and because it's so simple, you can just see what you're supposed to do. And then there's like this complexity scale where if you go all the way up to, like, you know, Warcraft 3, you look at that interface, and if you're someone that has never engaged with one of these games before, it might just immediately repel you because of the level of complexity. So it has like a negative pull. It pushes you away. It repels you, right? It's like a negative magnetism. Whereas if maybe you've played, maybe you haven't. It's 2002. You know, you've played Warcraft 1 and StarCraft, and you see this image, and you're familiar with it, so it pulls you in. It has like a magnetism on you, based on who you are as a player, and the fact that you can look at the interface and see what type of game it is, and intuit the level of complexity from the interface. This is one of the reasons why, you know, interface is such a quick shorthand for what type of game it is, and when people look through your kind of Steam screenshots, they will intuit what type of game it is from the interface they see, and they will use that as a guide for what type of game your game is and how deep it is, more than the like description of the game or the genres or anything like that. So, you know, a game can have a pulling effect on it, or it can have a repulsive effect on you based on you looking at it and your previous knowledge of games and objects in the world, and, you know, whether you know what to do with that game as an object when you look at it, right? And this screen is like, we've played a little bit of the game, and now you come to this screen, and this screen is kind of like, for me, this is like a turning point of like, oh, do I really want to do any more of this? Because this is going to get dense. And you get this with Zachtronics games as well, like the you know, Opus Magnum is like probably the most accessible Zachtronics game, but you start off with these little machines you're building, and then before long you're kind of at this level, and it's, you know, this isn't Factorio, because there's like horrible mental rotation and stuff going on in these games that is like, I never got very far in this, but you see it and it has a pull. That's one of the reasons why when they made Opus Magnum, they shipped it with this GIF converter that allowed people to like save their level buildings and put them on Twitter and stuff, because that then pulls other people into the game, because they see it and they either go, I don't want to do that, or that little like 1% of people that are absolute sickos go, this is exactly the game for me, right? And I think some people, you know, someone in the chat already mentioned that about this game. It's like, this looks like the sort of thing I'd be into. Yeah, let's do this one, and then we'll move on to the next game, because this is really taxing my brain a little bit too much for a Thursday morning. But let's see how we get on. Terminal will retract during rotation if there are any gaps in the interface on the way around. I've already kind of learnt that kind of by accident. So what are we trying to connect to? We're trying to go from the purple starting point and capture more of these energy crystal things. And capture those ones. This is going to tell us some more information. Terminal will retract while the interface rotates if there are no gaps. Okay. There's a really a very small kind of tutorialization tip here that you could apply to nearly any game. If you make the tutorial segment something the player has to actively reach and take in some way, or interact with in some way, even if it's just like pressing A on a little sign in the environment or something, you're giving the player agency over stepping through stages of the tutorial, and they're much less likely to reject your tutorial and try to skip it, which is what a lot of us do, especially those of us that play lots of games. It's just like, yeah, I'm sure I know all this, skip through it. If you make it so that the tutorial feels like a set of micro rewards, because you're like picking a thing up or interacting with a thing, that might be a good trick to force people to engage with your tutorial. So if you're working on a game currently and you're struggling to get people to properly pay attention and engage with your tutorial, maybe consider that, of like, how can you reframe the tutorial so it feels like you are getting a reward by deliberately engaging with that segment of the tutorial, if that makes sense. Right, that is Danilo's meditation. It used to be called Danilo's resurrection. Who is Danilo? Is that a philosopher or something? We're just getting footballers. Is it a mathematician? Is this someone's... a geometry guy? I don't know. I can't find out who this game is a reference to, but it sounds like it's referencing a particular person. That's great. That is... I really kind of... the interface resembles Downfall so much that I thought we were going to be just rotating stuff and passing it through, but we were doing a different set of things, and you don't even get to the rotation in the first few levels. It's kind of introduced later on. I also really, really commend this tutorial design where you have, you know, a level select, you have a tutorial, you have sets of levels that solidify the skill you learned in that tutorial, and you can either do those or you can just move on to the next concept. I think the layout of this could be even clearer. You know, if you had a line that went do down these, and then a line that went do like a connecting line to sort of show you how they branch together, that might be good. But yeah, that's pretty neat. A totally different type of contraption to our first contraption. It didn't even go pew pew pew. Everyone in the chat is Danilo. I know we've got at least one Danilo in the Discord. I didn't realize it was such a popular name. The last one, Falling Stars and Other Celestial Objects, is a side-on machine building game. All I've seen of this is the screenshots. So I do not look very far into each game before one of these streams, because we want to take the game for what it is rather than what the developer says it is. So, you know, occasionally look at the notes that we've been sent in before as I'm reading it, but generally we're trying to look at the game for what it is. Welcome to the demo, Commander. This is an early development version of our game. Some visual elements, mechanics, and content are subject to change. Your feedback is very valuable. Help us improve this experience. I will not. I refuse to help you improve your experience. So I'm feeling very belligerent today when I'm being told to do things by people's games. Falling Stars and Other Celestial Objects. What a great way to introduce your game. So just like have a start screen that really just shows you entirely what the game is about and what to expect, right? Again, think about what we were just talking about pull. And like, when you're looking at a game from a screenshot or a little loop of the game, does it have that effect on you? It doesn't need to have that effect on everyone. It just needs to be clear to the sort of person who would like that thing that they would like that thing. And this opening screen is incredibly good at showing me what type of thing it is and making me go, oh yeah, that looks like something I would enjoy doing. Lots and lots of levels by the looks of things. Okay, finish level, under budget, take no damage. Okay, so we got a tiered progress thing. Good morning, Commander. You have been left in charge of the Celestial Defense System. Why would you do that? Why would you leave me in charge of the Celestial Defense System? I don't understand. Prepare the defenses during the day, because at sunset, night will fall. Literally. In the upper part, it is indicated where the celestial objects will fall. In the lower part, you can see our city, prevent them from reaching it. One small thing, I find this very square sci-fi text a little bit unfriendly. You think of like the art style and the music the art style and the music is a little bit cute, and this square font is a little bit more Transformers. This is like the text that comes up and says the White House in a Michael Bay movie when they're showing you the White House, you know? I get that it's trying to do like a sci-fi theme, but it just feels a little bit too serious hard sci-fi when everything else in the game is pushing in the direction of being a little bit more cute and goofy. Very, very tiny creative direction thing, but right. Here's our city. I love the fact that we're taking that kind of physics contraption puzzle and putting a city underneath it so that if things fall that they're going to destroy a place. That's a really nice way of adding some narrative stakes. This is what the dangerous stars. The turret is gonna, so it shows us the outcome of the simulation before we run it. Right. Objects have a cost and each city has a target budget. You can complete the mission by exceeding the budget, but there is no reward for doing so. Okay. Place another... Okay, so we're trying to bounce the objects as much as possible so they can be shot lots of times. So the sort of logic that you're using is... It is Incredible Machine, right? The kind of physics gameplay. But the player logic they're having to use is a lot similar to... like closer to a tower defense game, because it's like, how can I keep this object on a particular trajectory so that it gets hit as many times as possible? Rotate the platform. Okay. Oh. Mouse wheel. Okay. We'll test that again, and that's going to bounce it back a little bit, and it kind of gets caught there. During the night, you can increase the speed, pause, or stop. Okay. Neat. No, I do generally only do single-player games. It's just too difficult to organise other types of games. And I often just find multiplayer games are just so often too over-ambitious that it's like you spend 4 times as much time organising a playtest for them, and then the stuff you have to say is just like, well, I don't want to get too much into it now. I just tend to find that developers that are trying to make multiplayer games and, you know, have been working on a multiplayer game for a year without getting loads of playtesting end up making like stuff that is really, they need to take a step back from it and do something simpler. Yeah, a Jackbox style game. I don't know. I really struggle to know why you would make a Jackbox style game when Jackbox exists. You know, why do you want to compete with Jackbox? We don't need another version of Jackbox to exist that has, you know. I'm sorry I'm being dismissive. You're asking me to do like 4 times as much work as I would normally do for something that isn't going to provide any more value for viewers. You can delete objects you have placed with the right mouse button or by dragging them back to the store. If you want to delete all objects, you can use the trash can button on the top left. Yeah, I mean, we've had a few games come through that needed to be multiplayer, and I tested them single player and then tried to organize kind of multiplayer sessions via our Discord, and it's very, very difficult to get people to commit to doing stuff like that. So we want that that's locked in place. I think, okay, the ones that we can't move, they're darkened, so we do have some sort of visual language to tell us which ones we can't interact with, which is good. I'm going to just try that without adding another piece. But if we do that... that's not as good. We can't ricochet the shots of the turret either, can we? Let's take that out and just see what happens. Right, let's try and 100% that. So my instinct was to put that there so that it got stuck. I don't know if that's going to do what we need, but maybe then they start to like back up and bounce off each other as well. I mean, the other problem with streaming a Jackbox type game is it's either a quiz, which ends up not really being game design. You know, a controversial statement, a trivia quiz is not a game. Or they're games based on players doing funny things for input, and then I can't necessarily control if people are going to just draw swastikas or whatever. So there's those issues as well with trying to test that kind of game. That's not good, is it? Why did we build a city up there? Why did we build a city floating in the air? What's this? This is a... Just do that. See what happens. That's really the solution, is to just put a gun above the city. No. So eventually the timing kind of goes out and you have to do something else. Okay, that's interesting. What a conundrum. So we're going to do that. That sort of thing? That sort of thing? Yeah. It's not doing good. We're not doing... Maybe we need that sort of thing. Not like that. Like that, but not like that. Oof. Oh, it's damaging us. It is getting through. Okay. Ah, KP, I completely didn't realize you can rotate the guns. I was just like, oh, they've given me a gun. It's this way round. Surely that's the way it's meant to go. You know, you're right. So we put this over here and rotate it. That was really silly. My brain was just like, well, they've given us the gun that way round, so maybe we just have to use it that way. Danilo's meditation broke my brain too much, and now I can't do a simple game of angles. Will that shoot the city if I do that? Didn't do it under budget. Right, I will be right back. 1 second. Just had that classic, you know, when it's 11:30 and you can smell a smell and you think, is my lentil dal burning? Little insight into my world. Took my daughter to school this morning, got home, made a lentil dal. I thought, I will make dinner 8 hours in advance. This is a propeller, although we like to call it a spring. It propels the celestial bodies in the direction in which it points. I think the celestial bodies should stay where they belong, in the sky. Lovely symmetrical level. That's what we like. I like, one of the things I like about this is you have degrees of success, right? So you can just like, oh, they can break your stuff. You can kind of do the version of the level where you just kind of scrape through, or you can do the version of the level where you do it really efficiently. That looks like we're getting a lot of shots in there. And then maybe... I do like this dotted line system, because the kind of older games this is drawing on didn't have that. You had to run the system every time to see what happened, I think. That means we don't need this, because this doesn't actually do anything. These are my favorite kind of puzzles, really. Like, this is, like, you know... It's got a similar... You know, Zachtronics games are way more complex than this. But they have a similar thing, which is, like, it's a puzzle, and you're using sort of deductive logic, but you're doing it to complete a task efficiently, rather than to solve, like, an adventure game puzzle, where there's just one thing you need to work out, and it's usually just some insane dream logic of how do these... nouns and verbs fit together, you know. Will that do what we need it to do? That's getting that caught in a loop. Yeah, that might work. Okay, so that gets that destroyed. So maybe if we put a boinga there instead. Oh, that's lovely. That does eventually get destroyed, though. How disappointing. Maybe if we move the gun closer, does that change what happens? Not enough. What if we put it over here? What if we do something to change how long these stay in the air? Maybe we need to think about this from a different angle. Just putting the guns too near the bouncy trajectories is a bad shout, right? I mean, we did it. Kind of want to perfect that one, though. I love how many variations there are on how you can approach each one of these. There's just so much. It's a big old possibility space, as we say in highfalutin game design theory country. It's just a lot of different ways you can approach each thing. I don't know why some of them have a crystalline, if they all have a crystalline. It looks like it's meant to mark something specific. You know, I get a sneaking suspicion that it's like from an asset pack, but the crystal looks meaningful, you know? If this was Bloon's tower defense, I would be like, a standard meteorite is brown, and then a brown one with a crystal takes more hits, and then a grey one is the next, and then a grey one with a crystal takes more hits. I don't know, but it looks like it's meaningful, and I don't know if it actually is. And if this is an asset pack, that's kind of a warning about asset packs, is like people will read things into the visual design of objects, and that means you need to be careful of like how you pick things, even if you're not making the art yourself, because it's still meaningful. Because we're meaning-making machines. That's the human brain for you. That's what it does. That's what it does all the time. It can't help it. That's why our jobs are so challenging. I want a quick reset button that just... yeah. So we got bouncers that are already there. What is the significance of this? Ooh, ooh! Yeah, I can work with that. So anyway, I started blasting. I think the moment of the destruction of the asteroids could feel a little bit more satisfying as well. There's not much distinction between the shooting sound and the destruction sound, and let's try that again. My simulation lied to me. So I just want to quickly just draw your attention to some of the visual design things going on in this game, because it's really neat. One of them is, if we just start the simulation again, when it's running at night time, look at where the orange is on the screen, right? We've got the orange here, orange here. It really, really draws your attention to what you should be paying attention to. We've also got the way the contrast colors are used in your springs and guns makes them stand out compared to the blue blocks. There's just a lot of thought about what color things are here to kind of draw your attention to things and make sure you're focusing on the right thing. Yeah, it's the visual design of this is really, really good. I don't like that typeface, and I know that's really small fry stuff, but I think part of it is that it doesn't have the same... It's too thin for the rest of the game. It doesn't have the same line weight as these icons or these blocks or anything, and that makes it feel a little bit amateurish. I would just be going for like a chunky sans serif font, like the one they use in Celeste or something like that. It feels like some of the UI as well, the text padding, the text extends all the way out to the edge of the window, which just looks very... That can look like quite an amateurish thing, and it's a very easy thing to fix. So just make sure your windows don't have text going all the way to the edge. There should be like a safe bit of padding around the edge. Otherwise, your game starts to look like a kebab shop flyer. Let's look at... This is... You know, if you ever want to know how not to do graphic design, you want to look at... I mean, these are works of graphic design that are so bad that I probably can't even find one on the internet, right? What you don't want is for your game to look like one of these. And the way to make your game look like a British fast food kebab shop menu is have too many fonts, have text that goes all the way to the edge of things, and is like trying to take up the whole space rather than being centered in a way that is like, no, here's where you're looking, sort of spread out all over the place. I can't find a really bad example. I'm going to start collecting them, and I'll just have them next to me at the table, and I'll get them out and go, look at this kebab shop flyer, because that's what I think about when I see bad kind of graphic design and typography in a game. And it's not necessarily bad here, but I think this looks great. When we can't see any text on the screen, the game looks quite premium, and then as soon as we see a window with typography in it, starts to look amateurish. And it's like the choice of the font, it doesn't look... It looks like a more of a kind of, this is a dark grown-up sci-fi thing because it's so square. And that squareness is a really kind of... it's just a Michael Bay movie. I bet you could find any Michael Bay movie where it goes to a place and the place name comes up at the bottom and it would use this kind of square sci-fi font. It just doesn't quite fit, and it's too dainty in places for the rest of the game. You've got a lot of line work here, which is like a little bit... You often see this in games where people have used assets from lots of different places and they haven't got an artist on the team, or they don't have a dedicated artist, or their artist is working on a certain part of the game and the rest is just like the programmer going, oh yeah, I'll do it. So you've got like a pixel art thing around here, and then there's other parts of the interface that look like they've got hand-drawn outlines, like these buttons and stuff. And it just doesn't have consistent line weights. You know, we've got a pixel art thing here as well. So those are... And I'm being very picky and pernickety here, but a lot of these things are very, very easy to tweak and change. Meteorites hitting a city is dangerous, yeah, but the rest of it has such a cute presentational style, then it feels like that is what we should be working with, right? We've got pixel art up here as well, which is just doesn't fit with everything else. Yeah, folks saying that the rotation feels weird. I think that's because of the angle we're looking at it, because things it's basically the thing is rotated around the center of the square, right? So I don't know. It's kind of okay that this is how this works, but it does mean you consistently are able to trap the meteors so that they bounce around in here. Whereas if rotating something rotated it so it went from there to there, right, from the end of that, then it would create this smoother line. It's hard to really work out what the implications of that on difficulty would be. Right, so it's coming down from there. It's going to bounce around in there. It might already automatically bounce off that and come this way. And then we need to just see... We need to intercept it, really. So the issue is that it gets caught there. That's going to break those eventually. So maybe we can just let that happen and then bounce over the other side. Yeah, that worked really well. Sorry, guys. Tonight, the weather forecast is a meteorite is going to land on your house. We apologise for any inconvenience caused. We ask you to refrain from picking up pieces of the meteorite or throwing them into neighbours' gardens. This just, you need to do as much manual bouncing as possible. I think that's it. I think that's what we're doing. I mean, Sean in the chat said that the weird angles is triggering a need for visual order. I mean, that is a valid thing, right? And I think this is a thing that lots of building games struggle with, is you've got a strategy layer and then you've got a building something beautiful kind of appeal as well. And a lot of base building games need to sort of lean in a particular direction of like, is the thing that you're making functional or pretty? But people will still have the underlying desire to make things line up and look pretty, even if that's not the goal of the game. And you've got to work out how much you go with that. One of the things I like so much about Frostpunk, and in Frostpunk, you build the city on a dartboard shape, and it all comes out from the center, and it just means that everything you make in Frostpunk looks really cool, even if you didn't really think about it. People playground, that sounds fun. Sometimes you just want to squish a bunch of little guys. You know, when we did the tower defense stream the other day, this was one of my criteria. It's like, do I feel like I'm making this big engine that just squishes loads of little things? And the probably one of the best tower defense games I played in that, it was like the only way I could fault it was I wish there were twice as many enemies with half as much health. Because you want to build this big machine that is just squishing things and squishing things. This doesn't quite have that kind of type of satisfaction, but I understand it's a different sort of game. This is a portal. They work in pairs. Celestial bodies that pass through one teleport to the other. So we've got to get this into that portal so it can come out of that one and get shot at. I don't really know how you test these to make sure that they're solvable. I would go mad playing through all the levels and testing them to make sure they're solvable. And if you haven't done that, then you're very naughty. What was that? What was that? Oh no, stars. The simulation cannot be trusted. The simulation is a lie. This is kind of what I mean about... The padding doesn't feel big enough for how big the text is. I feel like I'm no longer having fun with this. And I don't know a better way to put that. And I think it is just fundamentally that it's so much trial and error. I don't feel like I'm getting any better at it, if that makes sense. But I will persevere, because I like it. So what bothers me slightly is the sensation that I can run the thing again and potentially get a different outcome. I don't like that feeling. And I don't know if it's true or not, but it's a very strong feeling. Just the feeling that I'm building a pachinko machine, and because the game lets me back out and run it again, that there might be a way to brute force it into just working one time. It doesn't seem to be the case so far, but it bothers me that it feels like it's a possibility, you know? See, we haven't had a damage over here this time. There's a nice switch between the two pieces of music there. Between the thinking mode and the action mode. Why do we insist on building cities up in the air? I don't think my portal is working. Why is my portal not working? Oh, it's working this time. I think the stars take more hits than the asteroids. I think that's the difference between them. Folks, I am tired. I'm tired. I'm going to have to wrap this up in a minute. This is... We've been over a few visual things. I think the core of this is great. Someone in the chat just said they felt like it ramped up too quickly in complexity. I think that's right. It's kind of... It's like, I like all of the core mechanics of what we're doing. From a UX perspective, I would really like this to not have a confirmation step or be a lot clear. Like, this needs a don't show me this again button on it, basically. because once you're in the swing of playing this game, you want to be able to quickly remove all the pieces. And at the moment, it's like you need to remember it's up there. You need to do that. And I think this could just have a "don't show me this warning again" thing on it. Just make the game a little bit smoother. And I haven't gone back to... Like, can we go back to a level select or something? So it doesn't feel like we have... Oh yeah, here's our level select, right? In terms of demo, you know, just the design of a demo rather than a game, this seems like it's quite generous. They've given us like 2/5 of the content, and presumably the content towards the end will feel like more because it will take longer to do, because it will be more difficult. But it does... I think I agree. I don't know... It was Canal in the chat said it just feels like it got complex way too soon. And I totally agree. It just feels like trying to complete some of those early levels is already feeling like a bit of a drag. And I think you want to give the player early wins. Let's go back to a much earlier level. Use one standard, only use one turret, use less than 5 objects. Okay. Let's go back to an earlier level and see if I've got better at it enough to do well at get one of these extra challenges. So only one turret and not more than 5 objects. So we'll take some of these turrets away, and our 5th object will be another bouncer, I guess. Do the last level here and just see how we get on. How can you do that? It looks like I've already got them. Have I ticked them off already? Oh no, they go away. Okay, that's a little bit unclear, because that looks like it's something that you've collected already when it's ticked like that. Is that going to work? Oh, almost. Yeah, I don't envy you having to go through and test all of these challenges and make sure that they work. I hope that you have done that, because it's gonna be... It will be real rage bait if they haven't, if some of the things are impossible. That's it for me today, I think, folks. Thank you so much for joining. Just to see what we've got scheduled for next week before I jump off and go and search for kebab shop flyers. The most important thing. So this time next week, we are doing 4 top-down action games. Ascension, The Little Ones, Take Them Down, and Decurion. If you're the developer of any of those, please pop in on next Thursday. I've called it 4 games where you do violence from a bird's eye perspective. I'm trying to change top-down shooter terminology, because they're not always shooters. So you've got top-down action games. I think we should call them violence that you look at from above. I'm not being serious. Please don't take me seriously. I'm not really interested in genre names at all. So next week, we're doing that on Thursday. On Tuesday, I'm going to do a little catch-up on my own game, because I haven't done a stream on Dirt World for a little while. I'm going to just I won't be coding. I will just have a whiteboard open, and I will be thinking out loud about the game design. I may schedule another stream on Wednesday next week. That's what I usually do, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. and they are all varying degrees of us talking about indie games and how they are made. That is what this channel is about. So, the typography lecture with the kebab shop signage, yeah, they're great. They have great signs, but yeah, you can. I think a really good graphic design exercise is just to walk around your town, and when you see a piece of text that looks bad or looks tacky, try and think about what it is about the shape of things, the color choices, all of those things that make it seem that way, and you will get better at graphic design. That's you know, there's people that sort of go, Comic Sans, and that's their level of engagement with graphic design, is to be told something's not cool, and then to go, that's not cool because it uses Comic Sans. And then there's another level where it's like you're actually looking at the form of the thing yourself. That is how you get better at graphical things, is to analyze how other things are done. You know, I do it when I'm making anything really. If I have to make a flyer for an event or something, I just look at loads of others and I try and work out the rules of what they've done. It's very similar to any type of design, you know, visual design, designing games. It's like you need to be able to look at other things and take them apart mentally and work out why the thing works the way it does, whether it's just purely an aesthetic visual thing or whether it's, you know, something more interactive. You need to be able to do that, and that's why we do this kind of stuff. That's why we do discussion based stuff where we are responding to something and reacting to it, and that's why I think what we do on this channel is more valuable than me just going, here are 10 rules for game design. Every game should have a red barrel that explodes. Now, I do believe that every game should have a red barrel that explodes, but I don't believe in top 10 advice lists for how to make good games, because that is not how you design interesting human experiences. Yeah, go through the whole font library. I've shown you I think I've shown you mine for Dirt World. So when I was doing some graphic design for my own game, let me just check that Canva's not going to open on something awful, because I occasionally make very trollish things in Canva. Yeah, this is what I did when I was working out what typeface I wanted to use for my game. It's just like 3 slides of just collecting every typeface that I like. It's several stages, right? It's kind of like when you do sound as well. You go through the library, you pick out the stuff you like first, you put it all in one place, and then afterwards you can go back more critically and go, okay, which one of these things actually fits better? Picking assets, picking icons, picking sound, picking typefaces. There's a 2-stage process, and the first one is just grabbing things that appeal, and the second one is taking that short list or long list, I guess, and then whittling it down based on more rational criteria of like, does this really fit what we're doing, you know? And I still didn't end up using one of these. I ended up doing a version that I had to like draw over manually because I couldn't get exactly what I wanted. Pepperized. I dare you to make a visual novel about red barrels. That'd be great. Or just like a visual novel where you talk to... There was the dating sim where you talk to inanimate objects, right? That, but it's a whodunit, and it's about just generic video game objects, like a key card, a red barrel. It's all things from Half-Life, just bad Half-Life screen grabs, and you talk to a barrel, and then you talk to a key card, and you talk to a medical kit. But yeah, I hope you all have a good day. I'm going to go and tend to my lentil dal and watch out for exploding red